Hello and welcome to week 2, unit 6 of our Open SAP course, SAP Fiori Overview, Design, Develop and Deploy. Today we will focus on the DLD process for success, checklists for floor plans, validate your designs with end users, the theme designer, the icon explorer, a designer's work is never done. The design-led development process is just not a fancy graph. It is more of a condensed best practice from lots of professionals. It makes sure that you don't forget a step or diverge in a completely wrong direction early without checking the course often. If you use it, it makes sure that you do upfront user research with end users. You fully understand the problem, not the user's proposed solution. You always stay open for feedback. You fail during the design, not the development. You constantly check with the user's goals. You don't talk about a solution, but you show it. You include end users from the beginning to the end, and eventually are successful. Most floor plans, like the list report, come with some pitfalls depending on the situation. If you need a search field on the floor plan, use the one in the filter bar. Technically, you could also add one to the table toolbar, but those two could cancel each other out without knowing. And that's why you shouldn't do that. The same with filters. Use the multiple filters in the filter bar and avoid having additional filters in the table, since they can cancel each other out. If your use case calls for a quick action for an item, provide a button for each line. But if your use case requires to affect multiple items at once, provide a checkbox per line so the user can work with more than one item at a time. If you use a grid table, a tree table, or an analytical table in your list report, you need to provide an adaptive alternative for users of small devices, like phones and tablets. We are providing checklists for the most common floor plans. So if you're using one of those floor plans, quickly go through the regarding checklist just to make sure you didn't forget anything and you sidestepped some of the common made mistakes. User validation is probably the most important part of guaranteeing your success when it comes to user acceptance and user experience. We won't go through the entire process of user validation, since OpenSAP already offers very good classes on that topic. If you want to change how effective your users are with your software, go check them out. But sometimes there might not be the time or the budget for full-blown user validation. But that does not mean that you could just cut that step out completely. Do some guerrilla validation. This method is by far not as effective as the real user validation, but it still helps to avoid some mistakes. For the guerrilla testing, find a couple of colleagues, maybe from a different department, or ideally as close to the persona as possible, and ask them to fulfill specifically designed test tasks. The answers might not be as meaningful as from real end users, but it prevents you from, as a designer, from being gridlocked in your own mind. If you ask either end users or colleagues, make sure they feel comfortable giving you feedback. After all, feedback is a gift. So stay positive and friendly. The user is always right. If he doesn't understand the UI or a button on the text, he doesn't understand it. So accept that. It is a good rule to listen about 80% and only talk about 20%. You do not want to explain your UI. You want to find out if the user understands it as it is. Ask only one question at a time, and ask this question openly. Remember, you do not want the user to succeed at all costs. You want to find out if he does this on his own. So don't ask leading questions or help him if it's not necessary. Do not correct the user. And this one is the hardest. Do not explain your screen or defend it. It can be frustrating just to watch somebody fail, but rather your tester fails than a real user later on. Now you have the chance to make changes and make your product better. In a lot of situations, we need to grasp a lot of information in very little time. Icons help us to recognize categories or products way faster in a language independent and often cultural independent way. To support you in your design challenges, Fiori comes with an icon font to provide you with lots of free enterprise and business related icons. You might ask yourself why icons are provided as a font and not as pictures, since there seems no difference in the first glance. Well, the first upside with icons as a font is that they can easily be scaled without providing the icon in different sizes or the loss of quality. The second reason is that every font can quickly be colored, as a pixel-based image would need to come in different standard colors, so you might not be able to choose your color. But how would I find the right icon for the design challenges I'm facing? To help you with that, SAP created an icon explorer that lets you search for keywords in different sets of icons. If you, for instance, search for ad, you'll find several icons for either a general ad or specific ad icons for photos, products, documents, and so on. You will see typical use cases on the context on the right side and can directly copy the UI5 code, the icon itself, or the Unicode for it. Until now, all the screens that we designed looked completely like SAP. The colors, backgrounds, and the logo and the shell header. But what about customers with an own branding? What about a development partner or consultant that needs to make changes so it looks more like the customer's corporate identity? Let's assume the customer has a style guide and a website that looks like that. There are images, different colors, and a different logo. How would somebody handle that? So now we would need to go from something like this to something like this. The background image has changed, the header logo has been replaced, and also the key colors and highlight colors have been adapted. This can easily be achieved with a theme designer. Let me show you an example. Okay, I'm already logged in here in the UI theme designer, and I'm going to create a new theme. So we have different themes to choose from. There are also the legacy themes from even before that. We're going to choose one that is pretty close to whatever we want to create. I think the Quartz Lights one is closest. We're going to create this standard theme here. And I'm already on the launchpad. So now we're going to change a lot of things. First of all, we're going to change the company logo, which is already in here. I'm going to choose that, and it's immediately updated up here. Further on, I'm going to change a few colors. I'm going to change the brand color, which is featured in a few places. And as soon as I'm clicking out of here, it's going to be changed in a few places. And I'm going to change the highlight color, which is everything that is basically highlighted right now, as this element is right here. And that's it for the first tab. I'm going to change to the second tab, where more of the details we're going to change. First off, we have to change the header. Quick glance, this is what we're going for. So the header is completely white here, the tiles are white, and the icons have this nice little brand color, as has the badge up here. So I'm gonna go for the header color and change that to completely white. And it's changed right away. And the next is the text and the shell interactive. The text and interactive color. It's both got to be the same color. And it's updated right here, right away. And the shell interactive is basically everything that is interactive in the shell header right now. Also updated. And then there's the badge background, which is our key color, the bright yellow. Gonna put this into here. And it's also updated right away. Next thing is the background. I could change that to white, but since we already have a background image to choose, I'm gonna click here and select this one. And it's already looking pretty close, but we have a little bit of transparency here. So I'm gonna change that to about 0.4. And that's coming pretty close here. Last thing is the group header here that needs a different color as well. So I'm going to change that. And of course the tiles need some work. First of all, the title color needs some changing. So it gets to be a little more blue. The text color, which is the text just below. And of course, right now we cannot see the icons right here because they're white on white. So we have to change the icon color to the bright yellow. And that's looking pretty much already like the one thing we were going for. Eventually, let me tell you, a designer's work is never done. Time changes, user change, and requirements change. Since the beginning, we came a long way from R2. R2 was mainly a functional on console. R3 already provided a graphical user interface, GUI, but it was still done with developments in most cases, and often confusing or overloaded with functions that came in over time. A pivotal point was SAP Fiori. One of the reasons why we have SAP Fiori today were new requirements. Companies wanted to use enterprise software on mobile devices, and with R3, this simply wasn't working. But this was not the end of it. For instance, the list report that you see here did not stop there. It got more evolved. SAP added the collapsible header to provide more space. And even more evolved when Designer added a floating toolbar. And also, this is not the end. There will be new requirements, new challenges that we designers have to face in the future. The list report, as all products, will constantly have to adapt and be redesigned if they want to stay on top of the game. Let me give you some final hints. Try to use the design system as a standard. I often heard that design system limits designers, but I don't think that's true. Start with a standard and then extend and rebuild as you need. Some designers out there, they start every application from scratch and ending up missing a couple of pieces that the design system would already have covered. Learn how to use the floor plans and layouts effectively. The most design challenges can be solved with the standard floor plans and layouts. So knowing them well and knowing what they do is key to a fast information architecture. Build a solid foundation before you go freestyle. Use the SAP Fiori guideline like a dictionary, not like a thriller. The SAP Fiori guideline has hundreds of pages, and I would not expect anybody to read through it cover to cover. But whenever you ask yourself if a component can be used in a certain way, call up the regarding page and see what the component can do in that way. After a while, you might know more than you might realize. The SAP Fiori guidelines are guidelines, not laws. Do not obey them because they're there. Obey them because they make sense. The user or the use case is king. In the end, your use case is what counts. If the user knows what to do, can do it fast, and he likes it, that's it. If you want to change something for yourself, then don't. If you need to change something for the use case, then do. SAP offers a lot of tools for you to design quickly and effortlessly, in most cases. Try to use those tools as a standard and only find a way around if you need it. And last but not least, never love your design. It is something that's supposed to work for a user to make his job easier and not to appeal to you. Always be open for feedback and to change something for the sake of the user. That brings us to an end. Today we talked about why we follow the DLD process for success, how to use checklists for floor plans, that we always validate your design with end users, what the theme designer is, where you can find the icon explorer, and that a designer's work is never done. Until the next unit, your development experts will tell you how to turn your design into code and develop SAP Fiori applications. Thank you and goodbye.